G'day Junior Techies, welcome to this video where we're looking at question 4 of the worksheet of DNA and nucleotides. My name is Mr. P. I'm going to take you through this video. I've done a few of the other videos as well, so I do hope you enjoy this with me. We're going to be looking at a bit of exam technique, question analysis, and then helping you better understand exactly what the question is asking you for when we approach these types of questions. Okay, so looking at question 4.1 here, what is DNA profiling? I'm just going to stop over there. Context here, DNA profiling. Question 4.1, what is DNA profiling? So here it is the mapping of an organism's DNA, particularly its sequence. Okay, so we need to be a little bit more specific here. So mapping of an organism's DNA, but the sequence of the DNA. All right, so the nucleotides and how they are sequenced, particularly coding for certain genes. All right, this is usually done to represent or to be represented by a series of barcodes or a barcode pattern. And if you've worked through a few questions previously, when you do look at DNA profiling and either paternity or maternity or DNA collected at a crime scene, you'd see those bars. A lot of questions that you get in a final exam do have those bars. There are some other questions that deal with those types of questions particularly, and this is in the worksheet. So please make sure you do get a copy of that worksheet to have a look at those types of questions and how we approach them. But what DNA profiling is to create that barcode pattern which maps a person's DNA, or it's an organism's DNA. It doesn't have to be a person. So it's about that sequence and mapping that sequence. If we look at question 4.2, here we're looking at a murder suspect. DNA evidence was found at a crime scene. Now this question has a particular nuance, so we have to read the question carefully here. It says there has been DNA found at a crime scene. They have a murder suspect. Now there are two, so obviously this matches. So the DNA evidence and the murder suspect, the DNA evidence matches the suspect. Now, why would there be any sort of reason to doubt this evidence? So it says give two reasons why the suspect may be found not guilty. So we can use our experience in dealing with this in this section. We can use our experience in the other questions that we've answered on this section. And not so much our imagination, but we could think for ourselves here. This can be quite logical if we think about it. What are some of the reasons that this evidence may not be used in court? And here we could see that DNA could be planted at the scene. Okay, is that possible? Yes, it's a possibility. What are some of the other possibilities when it comes to using DNA evidence that may result in our murder suspect not being convicted of the crime? Well, if the defense can argue that DNA was planted at the scene, or that human error may have occurred in whatever form, either when collecting the DNA or when processing the DNA in the laboratory. Sometimes as well, there are different processing techniques that a laboratory sort of uses when it comes to processing the DNA. In some cases, these techniques may result in contaminated samples. And I mean, that's a reason for a suspect not to be found guilty, because contaminated samples gives a little bit of doubt. There is a reasonable amount of doubt in this type of evidence. So particularly when we look at processing this or these samples, the collected DNA evidence, the chain of custody here becomes so important when it comes to trying to find a conviction for a murder suspect particularly. All right, and something else that we could look at here is that this person could have left the DNA at the scene prior, so well before the crime was actually committed. So all of these reasons are feasible reasons, but you need to give two. So what I would do is, when you're approaching a question like this, is take a pencil on the question paper, jot down a few of your ideas first, and choose the best two. Right? Choose the best two, because normally when a question asks for two possible reasons, the memorandum only allows the marker or the examiner to mark the first two given. So if you give, for example, I've given 4 here, say my best options or my best answers here are the examples I've given at points 3 and 4. My examiner will only mark the first 2 points that I write down. So plan your answer, all right? Of your ideas that you've written down now in trying to answer this question, choose the best 2 and write them first. And if you've got a few other ideas, you're welcome to write those as follow-on points. But choose your best examples first. That way you'll definitely make sure that you've got the best possible chance to get full marks for a question like this. Okay. All right, Junior Tikkie, so that brings us to the end of question 4. Very short, very to the point. Done a little bit of theory here as well, hoping that this has helped with, 1, your question analysis and exam technique and how to approach questions. Remember, don't take any question too lightly. Read the question carefully, understand the context that the question is being asked before you start answering. A lot of the times, mistakes are made in, we think this is what the question is asking us for. We write down our answer and we carry on and we don't look back. A lot of times, we're not understanding exactly what that question is asking us to write down. So exam technique is super, super important. And I hope we're getting used to analyzing questions before we answer them. All right, again, I'm Mr. P. Thanks for joining me in this video. And once again, if you haven't got those worksheets and the worksheet memorandum in helping you to prepare for your final exam, do get a hold of those. Get a hold of the theory booklets as well. Work through those consistently, and I'm very sure you'll do well for your final exam. All right, thanks a lot, Junior Tikkies. Do hope to see you again.